What makes a good life? A lot of people think that success and happiness are kind of related, and people have been studying the pursuit of happiness for many centuries. Today, we're going to find out about some empirical studies on what it takes to have a good life. Welcome back to The Goal Getter Life. I'm Cindy Knorr, certified high performance coach and change agent with Synergy Coaching. The longest study ever conducted on happiness is called the Harvard 75-year study. Robert Waldinger did a TED Talk on this, and I highly recommend that you watch it if you get a chance. What they did was they took two groups of boys. They took 456 boys from the poorest neighborhoods in Boston. These were the most underprivileged boys that they could find. And they compared them to, have a seat here, they compared them to 268 boys who were sophomores at Harvard. And the reason they chose these boys was because they were from completely different backgrounds and upbringing. They followed these boys from 1938 and 1939 for 75 years. They took their medical records, they took brain scans, they interviewed them and their families to see, how are you doing? Like, are you happy or are you healthy? And obviously they kept track of when the people passed away. And what they found was that the people who were the happiest and the healthiest and lived the longest weren't the ones who were the most successful. They didn't have the biggest houses like the ones around here. They didn't have the biggest cars or the best toys or go on the best vacations or anything. There was one thing that they noticed that was more important than anything else, and that was good relationships. It was good relationships that helped them to live longer and be healthier and be happier. That's what makes a good life. So you might be thinking, good relationships, that's awesome. You find somebody wonderful and you get married, and then just like in the movies and the love songs, you say, you're gonna live happily ever after, right? Wrong. That's not what happens, right? You know that. So you think, okay, I'll marry somebody wonderful, and they might have a few little quirks that you find out about later, so you can just change them, right? No, that's wrong too. Nobody wants to be changed. They just want to be accepted for who they are. So the next empirical study that I want to tell you about is Dr. John Gottman. He has love labs that he has it set up in Seattle, and this is a bed and breakfast kind of a place that's right by the ocean, and couples come there, and there's cameras on the walls, and there's a one-way glass in the kitchen where they are watching these couples all the time, watching their interactions. And they're hooked up with biofeedback monitors as well, so they can tell about their blood pressure and whether they're sweating and their breathing and everything, and how stressed out they are when they're having these interactions with each other. And these couples are anywhere from being just newly getting together to having been married for many years. It doesn't matter. What John Gottman found was that he could predict with 91% accuracy whether the couples were going to end up in divorce. And this is like crazy, 91% accuracy. And how he did this was he found out there were 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. That's what he calls them. The first one is criticism. We all know what criticism is, when somebody tells you that you're doing something wrong and that you should be doing it the way they think you should do it. The second one is contempt. And this is one of the most difficult, painful things to observe in a relationship. And it's when one of the people says such rude things to the other person, and they like roll their eyes and they call the other person names. And this is really harmful, especially if it's done in public. So we have criticism, contempt. The next one is defensiveness. And we know what that one's like too. I'll give you an example. If I'm driving and my husband is riding with me and we come to a four-way stop, I just stop very rolly-ish, and he'll say, "You didn't stop at that stop sign." And I'm like, well, I stopped. It wasn't exactly for 3 full seconds maybe, but I did stop. He'll say, "You're gonna get a ticket," and on and on. And so then I'll say, "Do you wanna drive?" That's kind of criticism and defensiveness both going on at the same time. The last horseman of the apocalypse that Dr. John Gottman discovered was there's criticism, contempt, defensiveness, stonewalling. This is when one of the people just refuses to talk to the other person about the subject at all. And they can leave and slam the door and just go, and that's actually fine to do if you want to give yourself some time and not say something that you'll later regret. But when you leave and then you come back and you still don't talk about it, that's what stonewalling is. John Gottman, with those 4 things that he was observing in the couples as they interacted in his love labs, he was able to come up with this startling statistic, which I just love. It is that 69% of disagreements and arguments are actually unsolvable. And this is because there are 2 people who come from completely different backgrounds and upbringings, and they have different beliefs. They come together and they have disagreements about money. One person loves shopping and the other one wants to save their money for retirement. There's disagreements about who's doing how much housework. One feels the other person isn't doing enough. There's disagreements about how the children are being raised, about discipline. There's one person is more outgoing than the other person. They want to have big dinner parties, and the other person doesn't want to be around people. They'll say, "I've been peopling all day at work, and I just want to sit here and watch some sports on TV," or whatever. Or how you spend your spare time. Maybe one person is on their phone all the time, or gaming, or whatever. In any relationship, there is just so many things that people will disagree with and argue about. And sex is a big one. There's so many arguments, disagreements about that. So you know what I'm talking about. Every relationship has all of these things. 69% of arguments are unsolvable. Okay, so we have a study that says if you want to have a good life, you need to have good relationships. And then we have this other guy who's finding out that 69% of arguments are unsolvable. How on earth are you going to have a good relationship, right? So the clue is to just avoid those 4 horsemen for sure. Criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. If you can be aware of those things when you're doing them and avoid them, that's awesome. And the other thing is to just accept people for who they are. Don't try to change them. You can only change yourself. My wish for you now is serenity. The ability to accept the things that you cannot change in the other person, and the courage to change the things that you can in yourself. And the wisdom to know that you can improve your relationships and have a good life. For more everyday strategies on how to be your best and how to have a good life, subscribe to this channel, comment, like, and share with anyone you think might benefit. I'm Cindy Knorr, certified high performance coach and change agent with Synergy Coaching. Until next time, the best in me recognizes and honors the very best in you.